Hello and welcome to the latest installment of PSG Talking. I'm your host Ed, and on today's show we're talking all about Paris Saint-Germain's latest transfers, Xavi Simons, and additional signings PSG must make before the close of the transfer window. Before we get started, let me thank all of you out there who have subscribed to PSG Talk Extra Time on Substack. Next week we're going to have our special season preview podcast. We'll put that out there on our Substack. We'll make our predictions for the season, so just make sure you subscribe and look out for that next week. All right, joining me on the show today, we have Ethan from PSG Fan Club Boise. Ethan, welcome back to the show. It's been a minute since we've had you on, so I got to start with, how's your summer been so far?
Yeah, thanks for having me on again. It's been good. Not a lot. Work's been busier than expected, but I will be finally making I feel like everyone I know has been making some sort of summer trip, and I'm sure you've probably had a trip or two as well, and I haven't really had a chance to get out of town yet, so I am going to do that. As it's my wife's birthday next week, so that'll be nice. Her birthday, I think I brought this up before. Her birthday is the same day as Paris Saint-Germain's birthday, so it's always been easy to remember her birthday from as soon as we started dating. So
I would say you planned that, but that's so random that you found someone. Your wife has the same birthday as your favorite club. That's so funny.
Yep, 1 out of 365 chance, and it just happened to work out that way.
There it is. All right, well, let's set that to the side. We've got a lot to get to, limited time with you today, so we want to get to it. The big news that came out yesterday, João Neves is officially a PSG player. I didn't think this one would actually get over the line. Our friend Mark Damon on social media was like, has anyone seen him? What's going on? Because it was like the deal's been finalized, but the club waited all weekend before they finally had the video and all the graphics and all that. So it was a painstakingly slow negotiation. The 19-year-old midfielder, he joins PSG for a total package of a reported 70 million euro. That's well below the release clause that Benfica had originally said and thought that they could get. I think it was something like 120 million. So you get João Neves, a top midfielder, for a really good price. He's going to walk right into the starting lineup, I think. Maybe not. You can correct me if I'm wrong. But just overall, what is your reaction to that news?
Yeah, it's a lot of people were thinking, oh, these negotiations are taking too long, and I'd just like to point out that, like you said, the total package is around 70 million, and we're sending, that's including bonuses, which most of those bonuses will probably get reached, but we're also sending Renato Sanches to them on loan. But all that considered, that's got to be at least 10 or 20 million less than we expected to get him for. And so I think our patience paid off. He arrived right on time. He did not arrive late. He joined training the same day that Vitinha did. And so, of course, Vitinha played a lot more minutes than him at the Euros, but he arrived right on time. The deal was not done late. I personally I don't totally understand why a lot of people in July were thinking, oh, it's taken us so long to get signings done. And I'm thinking, guys are thinking about the Euros, and then they got to take a couple weeks off. So to me, we've historically got most of our biggest deals done in the first week of August. We signed Neymar. You saw all the posts a couple days ago that, 7 years ago we signed Neymar on this day.
Yeah, the check, right? The check for 222 million.
Yeah, that photo leak. I had never seen that before until this week. But so a lot of our big deals happen. They get done at the beginning of August, and this one was no different. So, but as far as his profile, and he seems like a much more Lucho Ball kind of midfielder compared to Ugarte. And I hope we might get into this later, but I hope we can sell Ugarte this summer. I like him, but I think it's just pretty clear that it's not going to work, and that we can get probably 50 million or more from him. But as far as, João Neves is, a lot of scouts have called him the best U21 defensive midfielder in Europe. I know that some people are hesitant to say, no, he's not just a 6. Or he's not just an 8, but I'm going to lump him in the category of defensive midfielder for the sake of this, sake of time here and discussion. But getting probably the most anticipated, most sought after, highest rated teenage defensive midfielder in the world for that much is I'm not going to say it was a bargain because I just don't think anything over 60 million can be considered a bargain just based on how much money that is. But it's certainly a good deal. I'll call it a good deal. So overall, very happy that we got this done. I tried to kind of keep my fingers out of, oh, I want this player and that player, to have like a player wish list, just because, as we saw with another signing we're going to talk about in a minute, a certain Ecuadorian center back, we often don't have any clue who the club is negotiating for in reality. We get some reports from journalists, but it's, I mean, the one that we're going to talk about soon, it came out of the blue, essentially. So I try not to get too worked up about which certain players I want, but I'd say this was one that I did really want us to get done this summer. So really excited. I do love that we're just like those PSG teams in the 90s that were so good, even though they did not have a wealth of funds like they do now. It was just mostly a French, half Brazilian team, and those dudes just all fought for each other. And it feels like we're kind of doing the same thing, but replace Portugal now with Brazil, a different Portuguese-speaking country. And so it's kind of good to see. I do like this identity that we're getting in the squad, courtesy of Nasser Campos and Luis Enrique. Just a lot of good French talents, good Portuguese talents, and then a couple guys from other places. And just let them cook, let them work together for a while. So looks like that's the goal. And I just think this signing is just going to, about what we talked about at the end of the season last year. We're on the right track, and we just got to give these younger guys time and let them develop. This just, I feel like this is a perfect signing for the current philosophy.
Well said. And I'm very excited about João Neves, and I just love that photograph from back in the day when he was a young kid and Gonzalo Ramos. So you can kind of already tell that there's some good camaraderie in there. All of the Portuguese players that are there, they all play on the national team. What I love about João Neves, and this comes from Robin Berner, who wrote a piece for us over on Substack, and he wrote that João Neves is in the 99th percentile of midfielders in terms of passes attempted, in the 91st for passes completed, and in the 95th percentile for successful take-ons. And then he comes out, João Neves, and says that he looked up to Marco Verratti. And those are Marco Verratti's stats. We remember watching him and how the ball would just kind of stick to his foot and Verratti could control the midfield. And I feel like with João Neves, he's going to come in and fill that Verratti role for PSG. So I'm very excited about the potential for that. I also love that we had a former PSG player, Angel Di Maria, kind of encouraging João Neves, go to Paris, you're going to develop there. You're going to love it. We saw when Di Maria left PSG, he was in tears. I feel like that gets overlooked a lot because you have Messi and some of the others, Mbappe, who kind of take shots at PSG after they leave. But it's nice to know that Di Maria there encouraged João Neves to come. And he seems excited. Seems like he loves the city. He's a hell of a player. He's 19. Maybe the fee wasn't a bargain, but it was well below what Benfica were looking for. So I think it maybe not a bargain, but very good business from PSG. And it's just another indicator that we are building a proper sporting project. We're signing young players who want to be there, who want to develop at the club, who want to fight for the badge. So I can't really think of one single negative about this signing. Can you think of anything negative about this?
No.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm even thinking tactically. Our issue with Fabian Ruiz this last year is that he was often playing too deep. He wasn't able to fully utilize his whole skill set as an 8. And with Neves, Camilo, he'll be able to drop a bit deeper. I think there's a greater chance that we see the kind of Ruiz that we saw at the Euros this year. And then, of course, Vitinha is already in there, and he's going to work very well with Neves as they know each other, and he'll be able to, stay in the position as an 8 and then kind of, move into the attack more, just like last season. Man, yeah. I mean, the only thing you could think of is if you're trying to win now, then he's 19. He'll have bad games this year. I assure you, but he is pretty strong too. It's not like I know we do not have the strongest and tallest and biggest midfield, but he's certainly not tiny. And so, I mean, yeah, he'll probably get outmuscled in some games. But I think it's about time that we stop with the. We've gone over this. Stop with the bling bling. Stop with the win now mentality. Just because it kind of like you just mentioned, getting guys like Messi and Mbappe. We could sign bling bling all day, but do they want to be here? Maybe not. And more not so much do they want to be here, but would they rather be somewhere else? I guess is a better way to say that. And obviously, we didn't get the job done in that old era. So I just think following up with this young, this youth focused strategy is the way to go. I mean, we've seen a lot of teams do this, and it's paid off for a lot of the smart ones. And bling bling's just not viable anymore. So yeah. As far as a glaring long-term negative, no, I can't think of anything.
You mentioned some of the João Neves' physicality, again, from Robin Werner's piece. He said for tackles, interceptions, blocks, and even aerials won, Neves is in the top 75% of midfielders. So when you look at all that data, it really just paints a picture of a complete midfielder, even at 19 years old. And I think that's why he was rumored Manchester United and some other big clubs where they were all chasing him. And ultimately, João Neves chooses PSG. Just one final thought on him. If I were to think of a negative, I think you have him at 19, Warren Zaire-Emery at 18, and Vitinha is just looking up 24 years old.
Yeah.
It's a very young midfield. It's a very kind of small in stature midfield. So you do wonder, and João Neves was able to win some aerial duels by the numbers, but they don't have a lot of height in that midfield. There's not a lot of physicality. So could they get overrun in certain moments against certain teams? You could see that happening, but the quality is absolutely there. I think, especially in Ligue 1, I think possession numbers are going to be off the chart, even more so than usual. So João Neves is a PSG player. I think it's a great signing. So let's put a pin in that. We'll talk about him more as the season kicks off next week. Let's get into the next potential signing. Seems very close. At the time of recording here, there's no official news yet, but it does seem very close. So myself and others on social media, we've been calling out for some movement on a defender. You look at that back line, and yes, PSG have guys, but how many of them are Champions League quality starters? How many of them do you really feel confident about? There's injuries as well. There's some players that might be leaving. So we weren't even hearing anything about any kind of rumors about a defender being signed. And then on the heels of the João Neves deal, news dropped that apparently PSG had been working behind the scenes to sign Willian Pacho from Eintracht Frankfurt. The reported fee is around 40 million. It sounds like this deal is about to go through. They're reviewing documents today. What is your initial reaction to the news, both the player and just the fact that we absolutely knew nothing about this name linked with PSG at all? It came out of nowhere.
Yeah. My first two thoughts are, first off, I don't know a lot about him. I had heard his name before, as I watch a little bit of the Bundesliga, and I think he started, I think, like 95% of Frankfurt's games last season. So he got in a good seat. He played a lot of minutes last season, but I honestly didn't know his profile real well. But he's a left-footed center back. Which is kind of what we need. I feel like a lot of people were saying, "Oh, let's go after Todibo or someone like that." Not that it's like the be all end all, but most of those names that were getting rumored and dropped and suggested by fans, a lot of right-footed center backs, which given that Hernandez is out and Skriniar is quickly falling out of favor, and we'd love to not have to rely on just Beraldo for an entire. Basically probably till February, till Lucas Hernandez is back. It seems like it's a good fit. It's a left-footed center back. I do think it's crazy that, and I just actually posted this on Twitter /X, whatever you call it, a little bit ago. But I looked up yesterday the amateur semi-pro club that Pacho came from in a pretty rural part of Ecuador, and this guy went from playing at like a tiny little stadium with just like a set of bleachers on it, basically 6 or 7 years ago. To he played for Antwerp a couple years ago, and then he played for a very well-known club in the Bundesliga last 2 seasons. And from 7 years ago to now, he went from that little field at a town I've never heard of in Ecuador, and now he's going to play for Paris Saint-Germain. So he's quickly on the rise. He's only 22. These are the transfers that Luis Campos excels at. I love to defend the guy all the time, and he's clearly not perfect, but these are the kind of moves that Luis Campos is so good at. And so I have pretty high hopes for the guy. I'm not going to say that he's going to be, better than Marquinhos right off the bat kind of a thing, but typically, historically when a Luis Campos team gets a guy like this, that dude usually turns out real well. So, good to hear about that. And then it just has me thinking, I feel like so many people were so reliant on, I'm not hearing news, I'm not hearing any rumors, so that means that Nasser and Campos must not be doing their jobs. No, this is Paris Saint-Germain. We're I'm not going to say we've always been a serious football club, but we're a serious football club now, that's for sure. And I could assure you that they were doing work in the background. Just because you're not hearing anything on social media does not mean that they're not working. And so, love to see the fact that we've got 2 deals done in basically the span of 24 hours like that. And I'd say we're just a signing or 2, maybe 3 away from wrapping up this window now. So, it just kind of makes me, my first thought when that news came out was that corny meme that someone made way back where it was Abe Lincoln's face on like a quote, and it said, "Don't believe everything you read on the internet, Abe Lincoln." It's just kind of a corny meme, but I just thought it just made me think, just because you're not hearing anything doesn't mean that nothing's happening. I mean, these guys, Nasser is fiercely competitive. Luis Campos has, I'm sure he knows the kind of flack that he's been, under with some supporters here. And I mean, that guy has an insane legacy too. He's the only sporting director to beat us to the Ligue title in the last 12 years. And those are the 2 of the kind of guys that are just not going to go down without a fight. So yeah, this transfer window seems like it's been a bit more difficult to get deals done than most, but these are not the kind of dudes to just fold over and lie down and die when the transfer market's not going their way. So I'm just telling everyone, keep the faith. And if you kept the faith, then that's kind of paying off now, because it looks like we just need 1 or 2 more pieces in this window, and we're in a good spot.
It was such a glaring hole in the squad. I don't know if I thought that Luis Campos and Nasser wouldn't sign a defender. For me, I was like, can we at least get a rumor? Can we get a name? Maybe it's someone that you're looking at, and it's just we weren't hearing anything. But I always knew at some point that they would sign one, because it'd be malpractice not to sign a defender when you look at, the potential of, putting out there Marquinhos and Skriniar or something like that. So I'm glad. Admittedly, I don't know a ton about this player, but number one, I like that, and someone listening will correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he's the first Ecuadorian player to suit up for PSG if he does make the move, right? I think Mark Damon, again, I think he tweeted out, he looked it up and there wasn't anyone. So that's interesting. 6'1", 6'2", somewhere in there. So he's tall, left-footed, as you mentioned. So that's great. His value has only gone up. And when you start at such a rural place like he did, and you kind of work your way up, you don't get that. You don't have that trajectory, that kind of hockey stick going up, unless you've got talent. So that tells me that there's something there that Luis Campos has identified. 22 years old, so he's not a teenager. He's got some experience. He's played in the Bundesliga. He would have played in some big matches against Bayern and such. So he knows what that's like. So I like that he's coming to us with a little bit of experience. And I guess I'm thinking Marquinhos, of course, he's going to be one of the starting center backs. If the signing does go through, would you put him as a starter? Is there anyone else do you think should play above him. I think he would be the starter. I think I would prefer him being a starter alongside Marquinhos. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think yeah, to start the season, he probably would be. Um, I mean, while Lucas Hernandez is hurt, then I think he would start. I think Skriniar is going to get very, very limited minutes this year. Danilo is his form is his quality's dropped pretty drastically in the last 2 years, and he's on the last year of his deal. So I think for Danilo, everyone in the locker room really likes him. So I think he's just going to ride out this year as like the vice captain, and then probably leave on a free at the end of this season. So I don't see him getting a lot of minutes. He's just not Champions League quality anymore. And yeah, Skriniar, like I said, not going to get a lot of minutes. And then that just leaves, like I mentioned, Hernandez is hurt. So you've got Beraldo and Marquinhos. That's it. So Pacho probably starts over Beraldo. That's the thing, though. You don't have to put Pacho for every single game for a while, and then when Hernandez is back, then you've got four good center backs. I mean, Beraldo is still developing, and that'll take time, especially because center backs normally reach their peak or their prime a bit later than midfielders and attackers do. But once Hernandez is back in the spring, then yeah, we'll have four really good center backs, which is and I like that their ages, they're not all the same age. They're not all really old. Like, I feel like that was a big problem for us in the past. We only had center backs that were in their 30s, and we had like no youth. We kept selling or just not signing young center backs. So the fact that their ages, they're all kind of broken up by a couple years. I think Pacho's 2 years older than Beraldo, I think. And then there's a decent gap from those two to Lucas Hernandez and Marquinhos, of course. But yeah, I think, yeah, age-wise, it's a good signing. He's not a 17, 18, 19-year-old who is, had very limited experience in Europe, but he's got decent experience, but he's still young. Yeah. I mean, by the numbers, it looks like a great signing. Of course, we'll see what happens when he gets on the pitch. But I think he probably will start to begin the season.
So he's reviewing documents, and then will be headed to Paris for his physical. And so, not official, but certainly seems likely. And of course, with the heartbreaking news, or maybe not heartbreaking, it might be a little over the top, but just Presnel Kimpembe, just more injury issues. He's going to miss, these preseason matches. We all want to see him return to the pitch, but I just don't think there's any way that you could count on him. So just along with Lucas Hernandez, you've got Kimpembe also still injured. So a lot of issues there, but Pacho will come in, and I think he will play well and start. So well said there. All right, let's move on to an outgoing player, Xavi Simons, Mr. Trust the Process. He is headed back out on loan to RB Leipzig. No obligation to buy. That is key. Like all PSG fans, Ethan, I'm sure you've been following this saga all summer. Why? Why is he going back to Leipzig for another loan? What do you think's going on here? I'm just at a loss for words. It's just a head scratcher.
Yeah, this has been one of the weirder transfer sagas that I can remember. I've been following football for well over 15 years now, and definitely I've definitely been following it closer in the last 10 than I did when I was a kid. But I don't remember a lot of transfer sagas weirder than this. The fact that he isn't going to go to Bayern right off the bat is funky. The fact that we didn't get him on a loan with a mandatory buy clause. Of course, Leipzig would have never agreed to that, just because they're not the kind of club that spends 90 million on one player. They're the kind of club that'll spend 25 mil on 3 or 4 players.
Which has always struck me as odd, because it's not like money is a problem there. Like, they're owned by Red Bull.
Yeah, I just wonder if, FFP's getting stricter than ever before, which is another reason why I think I don't hate if PSG don't go crazy this summer, especially because we don't need to. Most of, slightly off topic, but a lot of the PSG targets that we're looking at, even like Desiree Doué, we really want him to come, but it seems like it's been a big headache, and he keeps toying and teasing us and Bayern. But we're thinking, we might spend 55, 60 mil for a guy who would, when he arrives, he'll be a backup. He'll be backup to Barcola. And given that FFP is going to be stricter than ever before, essentially, I won't get into the specifics, but PSG really we really got to stay within the guidelines of FFP this year. That's big. Other teams like Chelsea, I feel like they're gonna struggle to do that kind of thing, and we'll see if FFP takes these kind of cases seriously. But I'd say to not let's not poke the beast. But maybe just Leipzig's revenue isn't high enough to demand within FFP they can make that kind of move. I don't know. It just doesn't. Yeah, they're ultimately they know they're a selling club, so they were never really going to buy a club or a player like Xavi Simons for 90-something mil. But yeah, it's a really weird deal. Yeah, he's been a bit strange on social media, a bit cryptic, and sometimes cryptic can be kind of fun and good. I think most of us PSG fans don't consider this one as, look how cool this is, or look how.
I don't know if he's reached a level where he, like, if Zlatan wanted to be cryptic, okay, he can do that. Neymar can be that.
I agree.
You're a good player, but like, don't get too far ahead of yourself. Don't get over your skis here. Like, the cryptic stuff is a little kind of just like really just he's feeling himself a little bit. You know what I mean? Like maybe he thinks he's better than he is, and that we're all on the edge of our seats. What is he going to do? And it's like, yeah, we want you back, but it's not that serious. We got João Neves. We'll be fine.
Yeah, and at this point, I'm thinking we got him for 4 mil. Just sell him next summer for like at least 80 mil. 80 mil would be lowball right now, but say he has a bad year, kind of a thing. Just sell him for big money next year. That'll help us hugely with FFP. Because honestly, he's a little different profile than anyone we have in the team, but if we sign the winger that we want to this summer, whether it's Doué or Sancho or someone else, then, we kind of have enough depth in attack, at least on the wings. And, Simons is not a striker, so I'm not even really thinking about that aspect of it. So, yeah, just it's been weird. You're totally right. He's been the social media, and I don't like to say, I'm not that much older than him. And so I'm not going to, sit here and sound like a boomer saying, oh, these kids and their dang internet. But even for me, not being that much older than him, it's been a bit weird. Just everything he's been doing on social media, and yeah, just weird saga all around. I don't know if I have anything else really to say about it, but
and then I think it was one of the top journalists was saying that he's going back out on loan. There's no obligation to buy, but maybe a stay long term at PSG hasn't been ruled out. But then there's other reports that say when Xavi Simons and Luis Enrique met, it didn't go well. Maybe the assurances that the player wanted weren't really given by Luis Enrique. Like something didn't gel there with those two. And I think credit to Luis Enrique. I think that he didn't guarantee him playing time. We see at Leipzig, he's holding up a jersey. His numbers changed. I think last year he was 22 or something like. Anyway, he's got the number 10 shirt. Did he not come back to PSG because that's Dembele's number? It sounds ridiculous, but so does posting cryptic messages on social media. So who knows? Someone, a PSG supporter in our Discord server said maybe it was Neymar who told him don't go there. We know he looked up to Neymar, so maybe he said something. No one really knows. I think we can both agree that the whole saga is very odd. I do worry for PSG. You said, what if he has kind of a lackluster season? What if he takes a step back? I think it's unlikely, but it's certainly possible. His value could go down. What if he ruptures his Achilles? I absolutely don't want that to happen, but we didn't think it would happen with Kimpembe. And look, he's been out for over a year. So something could happen and PSG would be in a tough way. I think the better move would have been find a club that he would go to that could accept the obligation to buy, even if that was Bayern Munich. I think you're kind of playing with fire right now, letting him leave for a loan with no obligation to buy.
Agree. Yeah. Yeah, totally agree. Gosh, it would be so nice to. I mean, the good thing is that we only got him back for $4 million. It was essentially just, like I said, weirdest transfer saga in history ever for this guy, especially given how young he is. But that $4 million that we paid to PSV Eindhoven, that was almost just like a 4-year or a $4 million loan out, because he came right back. But yet in that, like you said, he might not ever play here again. And yeah, if Luis Enrique did tell him, I can't promise that you'll be starting, every match, then that is the best move, of course. He's not. If he was Mbappe, if he was an Erling Haaland, if he was like Messi back in the day, then obviously you're going to make those assurances. But he's, like we mentioned earlier, he's just not there yet. He could be, but yeah, it doesn't seem like I don't think he's ever going to play for PSG. I know a lot of people have said that, the club mismanaged this really badly. Well, no. I mean, if we knew that the player was kind of going to be like this and he wasn't totally willing to fight for his spot in the starting lineup, then you still have to think about it. We're paying $4 million. We're going to sell him for, like I said, at least 80. I don't hate that Xavi Simons sort of came back to at least assure us a $75 million profit out of him. Just so that's cool. I appreciate him for that. But of course, best case scenario, we'd have all wished that everything would work seamlessly and that he'd jump right in the starting lineup at this point. But, to me, it's kind of 1A and 1B as far as best case scenarios. So I'll take 1B, selling him for a huge, huge transfer fee next year. So I wouldn't say that the club has really mismanaged this at all. I mean, it's just like the case of, with Joao or with some other players, just if they don't really want to play here, then there's nothing you can do. I mean, some people will say that Campos is not the greatest negotiator of big players, and I might argue as a rebuttal that Nasser is a better negotiator, but he'll sort of just throw money at guys a bit more and offer higher salaries. But I mean, even Nasser, who's a very strong negotiator, is not going to win all these, and this is just one that we got the guy back, which is great, and but not even Nasser can do something about it. Maybe he can convince him to play here. And yeah, there could be a variety of reasons. Maybe Neymar told him something. Maybe Mbappe told him something. Who knows? But I think at the very least we're going to get a big transfer fee out of him next summer, unless he has some horrible injury, which would be terrible for both parties. Other than that, like, I don't hate it. It's not how I envisioned this when we signed him last summer, but it's also not the worst thing in the world.
We'll keep an eye on that one, but for now, he's at Leipzig, and actually PSG played Leipzig in the preseason, so maybe we'll go up against him and see what he's got. Ethan, we've got a few minutes left, so let's do this last topic quickly. So Ligue 1 season starts next week. Summer transfer window closes on August 30th. Walk us through who you think, just kind of a couple names, the most likely PSG players who will be leaving the club, and then maybe a position or a player that you think PSG will sign between, I guess, today and the end of the window. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, let's see. Outgoing players, I think Soler will probably leave. Ugarte probably as well. Some of those good Premier League sources have stated that even though Manchester United probably won't be getting Ugarte, that they're certainly not the only club interested. So to hear that from a Premier League source is interesting, because I feel like if those Premier League sources wanted to kind of roast PSG, saying, "Oh, they're not going to get that sale done now," then they would have. But they, in fact, said the exact opposite. So I think they'll leave. I don't know if Mukiele will leave. It's been interesting. It's been, like I said, this transfer window seems to have been a little more difficult than usual to buy and sell players. And I don't know if that has to do anything with FFP. Of course, I'm just always looking things through a financial lens. FFP, the new rules fully being implemented this year. There was sort of a slow build-up the last couple of years of, hey, fit these guidelines, but we're not going to completely hold you to it as long as you're not, way off the mark. But now they're fully implemented. And I think that may be the reason why it's been tough for a lot of clubs to get deals done. I feel like we've only seen a couple teams. We've got Chelsea who buy 15 players a window, and of course I feel like that's kind of what PSG used to do, so good thing we're away from that policy. And then Aston Villa have had a bunch of signings, I think, but other than that, it's been kind of a tough go for most clubs. So I'm starting to think maybe Mukiele stays. I mean, he might be another defender that we could play at center back. Who knows, though? I don't see Skriniar leaving. Wages are too big. Other than that, I mean, we lost Mbappe in attack, so I don't see us losing anyone there. Asensio's wages too big, and he'll probably stay. I think Lucho likes him as a false nine as well. But so that's kind of it for outgoing. I think we're going to get a winger. I still think we're going to get Due in the end, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we, whoever we get, we'll probably get a winger. And I think the club should get a striker because I think what we ideally move Colomwani over to winger permanently and then get another striker for Ramos, because even though I think Ramos is extremely underrated, he can't be playing all 50-something matches next year. So we need some depth. And if we always have, say the Alvarez deal, don't think it'll happen, even though there's been some rumblings this today. Don't think the Osimhen deal will happen either. But say we get another really good striker, then we'll always have them or Ramos coming off the bench, and that would, some PSG fans don't believe me, but that would be pretty insane depth to have Ramos coming off the bench, given how he did as a super sub last year. So I think we'll get a winger and then probably just like a rotational fullback. That's probably it for me on predictions.
Yeah, I think for me, what's going to be most important here in the next couple of weeks is outgoing players. I think right now PSG probably do need to sell before they can buy again. I think if they could get Ugarte off the books for the 60 million, I think is what they're looking for. Manchester United, I think, were really only willing to go up to like 35 million, which is, half of what they paid for Ugarte a season ago. So if it's not going to be Manchester United, they're going to have to find another club. So I think he's got to go. If they can find someone for Soler, if he could go maybe back to La Liga, I think if they can move those two players, I think that will open up the ability to sign maybe a backup fullback, maybe one that could play on the left and right. That would be ideal, someone who's versatile like that. And then I think we could be in for a, final closing day surprise. There's something with this Osimhen. There was a report that I think it was Campos really likes him. If I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong. Someone at the club really likes him, and I think you keep hearing it. Chelsea right now is interested, but it maybe not. They want to take him on a loan with an option to buy or something like that, and they want more of a permanent deal. I just feel like PSG are just waiting this one out, and they're going to wait till the end of the window. They know Napoli need to sell, and they'll say, look, this is our best and final offer. Take it or leave it, or, we're leaving. And I think they might pull that one off. Due, I think, the Rens stand out. I think he's going to go to Bayern Munich. I also, you're talking about 60 million euro, I think, is what Bayern Munich are offering for him. It's a little much for really an unproven player who couldn't even really play significant minutes for France in the Olympics. So I'm fine to walk away from that deal. And if you could get Osimhen for considerably less than, I guess, what Napoli want at the start of the window, I would say that's really good business, and I think we would be good. So maybe Osimhen and a serviceable fullback is all we need. But you got to sell. You got to sell first in order to facilitate those, I think.
Yeah, totally agree. And even though we have differing opinions on Due, you could argue that we've got, serviceable wingers for the year. You have Colomwani play on the wing, Asensio play on the wing. Kang-In is best as a midfielder, but he can play on the left. I could see everything happen. But you're right. Yeah, sales sales got to happen. Let's get 2 guys out the door here soon for decent transfer fees, and then we can move into the kind of the tough negotiating, like you were mentioning, that we might do with Osimhen here at the end. Kind of selling clubs being desperate, and maybe we not lowball them, but give them ultimatum offers. So. Yeah,
and as we saw with Pacho, I mean, there could be a name that we don't even know right now. That's a name that we all, a player that we all really like, and we have no idea that PSG are negotiating right now. So there could be a surprise. So stay tuned to these airwaves, and we will certainly have reaction to any big moves that PSG makes. Ethan, we're at our time. Thank you so much for coming on, and thank you all out there for listening and subscribing. We really appreciate your support. We'll have a lot more on all things PSG. As I mentioned before, we'll have our previews coming out here in the coming days. So make sure you subscribe. But until next time, bye for now.